What's up guys, it's Skill Up here with another Division video. Today we're going to be doing our weekly Should I Buy It? A look at what has dropped at the vendors. Is it worth buying? And if it is worth buying, how do you mod it? I do these videos every single week at this time. So if you like this sort of content, then be sure to subscribe. And with that, let's get stuck straight into it. So here we are at the base of operations vendor. Firstly, we're going to have a chat to him and see what he's got on show for today. So the first thing he has obviously is the Historian, which is the same as every single week. I have done a review on the Historian. It's in the description below. Please do not buy the Historian. It is not a good weapon. Next up, we have a very interesting Tactical Vector 45 ACP. It's a 204 weapon, which is a really good one. Obviously, it's the max level at the moment. However, the very first thing I will say is that next week, weapon sort of gear scores go up. They go up to 229 as the new max gear score for Xbox and PC owners. Now the PS4 patch has been delayed, which totally sucks. I hear that, but that's essentially what's happening. The Xbox and PC users will get higher gear score weapons next week, and the PS4 players will have to wait a little bit longer. Now, the question about whether or not this is a good vector to buy is a really, really complicated one to answer, but I'm going to try and lay it out for you very briefly right now. This 25.5% critical hit chance on this vector is the highest possible crit chance roll that you can get on an SMG, so it's an excellent amount of crit. Come next week, for PC and for Xbox users, you will no longer get critical hit chance on an SMG. You will only get critical hit damage. Now, is this a nerf or a buff? It's generally speaking a buff if you are running at or near the crit cap, which most of us are, considering that we are running with a pulse or we're stacking a fair amount of crit on our gear. And it is a nerf if you are not running near the crit cap, which is very specific builds are doing that, and most people aren't doing that. So overall, having critical hit damage instead of critical hit chance is a buff. And also the fact that your weapon will be 229 is also a factor, right? So compared to 204, a 229 weapon is going to have higher base damage values. So from that perspective, I would say hold off and don't buy this vector. The other thing that I'll also mention is the vector and the AUG are getting nerfed next week. They're getting a 10% reduction in their base damage. I know everyone hates that. I absolutely understand that. I've worked very hard for my AUG and my vector as well. But that's the path that Massive's chosen to go down. And the good news is that there's lots of other options that are actually better than this now. There's LMGs, which are very, very strong outside of an SMG's optimal range. And then, of course, there's something like the MP7, which I've just done a video on, which I think is actually the best in class SMG at the moment. The challenge, obviously, is that there is no blueprint for it, making it much harder to get your hands on. So, I mean, if we talk about the talents on this thing, it does have Deadly, which is an excellent talent to have on a vector, particularly this vector, given this baked-in critical hit chance. It synergizes extremely well with the critical hit damage here. However, the other two talents are pretty lackluster. We've got Talented. Killing a target with this weapon increases skill power by 8.5% for 13.5 seconds. It's not a great talent, to be honest with you. 8% skill power is not huge, and most of us aren't running like massive skill power builds unless we're running Tactician, in which case we actually don't care what talents are on our weapon, generally speaking, because we're not aiming to use our weapons very much. And finally, Dominant. Every kill performed while your signature skill is active reduces the cooldown of your other skills by 8.5%. Very, very boring talent. No one really tries to use this because signature skills cooldown and duration is just too long to be able to get sustained value out of this talent. So overall, interesting weapon. Were it coming at a different point in the life cycle of the game, I probably would have recommended picking this up just from the crit roll, the fact that it's 204, the fact that it's a vector, and the fact that it has Deadly. But given everything that's going on right now, I'm going to strongly recommend to you that you don't pick up this weapon. It is not worth it. So moving right along to the lightweight M4, which is an assault rifle. Now, this one is a very straight, simple choice. Don't buy this weapon. The assault rifles are going to get bonus enemy armor damage right here, the same way that SMGs have critical hit chance. They're going to have a benefit, and theirs is going to be around 20% enemy armor damage. Only works in PvE, not in PvP. However, it's a really nice benefit to have, and any weapon that is not running that is sort of just a bit, it's disappointing, it's lackluster. The lightweight M4 is an okay weapon, to be honest with you. I really don't like it in the overall sort of assault rifle category due to its terrible instability. You really need to put a lot into stability to make that thing work. So I don't like it. But, you know, in terms of the talents, it's got vicious. Critical hit chance is increased by 13.5% when at full health. Terrible talent to have because, well, not terrible, that's exaggerating. It's not a great talent because the minute you take one bullet worth of damage, you're instantly losing the benefit of that, which really sucks. So not a great talent. Determined, killing a target reduces skill cooldowns by 9%, which is a fantastic talent. However, it does require 2,500 electronics, which most of us are not running. And finally, balanced is a talent that, you know, when you first shoulder the weapon on the very first bullet, it reaches its max accuracy much faster. So, you know, it's not even the first bullet. In fact, it's actually just when you bring it to your shoulder, the reticle becomes really small, really fast. And then after that, there's no benefit to that talent whatsoever. Really awful talent for any automatic weapon. So don't buy this. It's no good. It's a very, very easy pass. Finally, we have the black market AK-74. Now, I really like the AK-74. I think it's actually the best assault rifle in the game. Most people don't agree with that. They really like the LVOA-C, but the stability on a black market is actually much better, and the per bullet damage is also much better as well. That actually has the highest per bullet damage of any assault rifle, that is the black market AK-74. So it's a good weapon from that perspective. In terms of the talents that we get, we have Fierce, which is critical hit chance is increased by 8% when using this weapon. Now, it's a really nice talent to have, except for the fact that, again, you've got to have 1,800 in electronics and you've got to have 2,300 in firearms. Firearms is easy. Electronics, you've got to work for that one. It's doable, but it is a little bit tricky. Deadly, excellent talent to have. Critical hit damage is increased by 26%. Very, very strong. And finally, Adept, using a skill increases your critical hit chance by 8% for 5 seconds. We're generally using our skills. You know, we use them fairly often. Most of us will use them on cooldown, and it's a nice little boost. It's not a big deal, but it's nice to have. So, on my advice to you is, if you don't have a better weapon than this, if you're maybe someone that's newer to the game and you're just looking to, you know, gear up in preparation for the expansion, I'd really strongly recommend this weapon. It's a good weapon to have if you don't have anything better. It's very, very well rolled. It's got great base damage, and the AK-74 is a strong weapon archetype, I think, because of the fact that it has better stability than a lot of the other assault rifles, and it has all mod slots available to it, so you can really put lots of stability on that if you feel like you need to. It's just a really good overall choice, and it's only 235 Phoenix credits because it's only a 182 weapon. Alrighty, so at DZ3 we have some very interesting options. First of all, we have a pistol, which is 182 gear score. It's nice and cheap. It's got expert and deadly on it. I generally don't like pistols that focus on damage in terms of their talents. You'd really be wanting something like cool-headed or something like that applies a bleed or some kind of status effect. Pistols are not for dealing damage, they're for other things, so I'd probably recommend giving this one a miss. There's a 163 military L86. Now, L86, funnily enough, are going to be, in my view, the very best automatic weapon outside SMG range in patch 1.3. I've done a video on that, which you can check out. I'll put that in the comment below. However, this is not going to get the benefit that LMGs are going to get in the new patch. That comes on any new dropped weapons. LMGs will get an additional 25 to 30% damage on targets out of cover. So that comes later. So this weapon is not useful to us at the moment, sadly, and also it's only a 163 gear score, so it's not great. Now we get to the big one, the first wave M1A. It's a 204 and it sells for 102,000 Darkzone funds. Now, first of all, it's got a really nice roll on the bonus headshot damage, so that's a tick from that perspective. It has brutal headshot damage is increased by 24% when using this weapon. Fantastic talent, probably the best talent that you can get on a marksman rifle, given how focused they are on headshot damage. Steady is actually completely useless. Steady is a you don't even know that this exists, but when you hold your weapon and you just point it, your weapon will move ever so slightly, like left and right. Like, you know, just on a lot of other games, it's really noticeable, but it's not noticeable in this game because it's really not something that you feel. It's a very, very subtle effect. And so for that reason, Steady is a completely wasted talent. Sway is not stability, it's not accuracy, it's nothing like that. It's literally just when you're holding your weapon and you don't move it, it just moves ever so gently left and right. So just ignore that, it's a terrible talent. Finally, Toxic. Headshots with this weapon have a 13% chance to blind the target. Not a bad talent from a PvE perspective, given that you are going to be chaining headshots with an M1A. That's generally how they work. And, you know, having a 13.5% chance to do that every bullet is not bad. So, but it's not great either. I mean, I'd much rather a damage talent rather than this. So, yeah, but look, overall, though, to be honest with you, it's a pretty damn good M1A. You know, if you're rank 80 and you've got the Phoenix credits for it, I'd probably recommend thinking about it because, as I said, that the brutal plus the base headshot damage chance is just a really strong combination, and toxic can be quite nice in a PvE context. It's a good M1A. I'd much rather it have something like accurate on it, or capable is my favorite talent on an M1A, just to sort of stabilize the weapon. But yeah, but I'll also mention very quickly, M1As have also received a slight nerf in the new patch. They are going to have they're going to have larger reticle spread at higher rates of fire, meaning we need to fire them more slowly. So just be aware of that. The M1A isn't going to be quite as strong as it was, but it's still going to be the best marksman rifle in the game to use when you're not using an M44 for like big one shots. So yeah, it's still a good choice. But anyway, that's that one. Next up, we have the First Wave Vector 45 ACP. So again, 24.5% critical hit chance on this one. Not a bad roll. It's not max roll, but it's pretty close to it. So it's very strong from that perspective. Capable. Using a skill improves the weapon handling of your the weapon for 13.5 seconds. It's that talent that I mentioned a moment ago. Not really required on a Vector, to be honest with you. The Vector stability is not the best in class, but it's still an SMG, which means it's still a very stable weapon to use inside its optimal range. You really don't need more accuracy or stability on this thing, given that you're generally going to be using it inside 10 or 15 meters. So, bit of a wasted talent on that one. Ferocious. Damage against elite and named enemies is increased by 14%. Now, this is a fantastic talent to use, obviously in PvE only. However, it does have a requirement of 2,000 in each stat, which most of us are just not running at this point. Even myself, I run a sort of balanced build, trying to max my skill power as much as I can responsibly, and I'm only maxing out at 1,700 electronics because it's just not worth going much higher than that at this point, I don't think. So again, not a talent that most of us will see much use out of. Finally, Skilled. It's an excellent talent. Headshot kills with this weapon increase signature skill resource by 11.5%. If you are using this as your primary weapon, you can kill maybe 6 or 7 targets and have your signature skill back up. It is really fantastic for grinding in the Darkzone because you can essentially just continue to use your damage or your survivor link sort of signature skills on almost every pack or every second pack of mobs that you encounter. So really, really strong. Now, of course, the Vector will cop a 10% nerf, which will still leave it a very, very strong weapon, but not as strong as it is now. So look, overall, I probably wouldn't recommend picking this one up. As I said, it's about to cop a nerf. It's not maxed out on the crit chance. The talents aren't amazing, and you're not really going to see much use out of them except for Skilled. I think that if you're at rank 80, you're probably already using a better Vector than this anyway. You've probably spent your fair share of time in the Darkzone. You've probably got something better. I'd probably give this one a pass. Finally, in terms of the blueprints, we have the LVOAC blueprint. Now, I would really not recommend picking this up for 2 reasons. First of all, it's only a 204 roll, and you're going to be moving up very soon to 229 weapons, so that's where our focus most likely will need to be. And further, I actually think assault rifles are pretty much dead in the next expansion, unless they get some buffs, and unless that armor damage is brought over to the PvP side. I actually strongly recommend using an LMG in every instance. They are just a better weapon in both PvE and PvP contexts. You know, if they change assault rifles later on, maybe that'll improve. But for now, you know, assault rifles are kind of sitting out the next expansion. I wouldn't be crafting one, and I certainly would not be spending 200,000 Darkzone credits to buy a 204 assault rifle that I will certainly not be using in the next expansion. And that's it from me, guys. That's the should I buy it for the week. If you liked this video and you found it useful, please do drop a like, as it does help me out in a very big way. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button now. I've got tons of videos coming through in preparation for patch 1.3, and obviously after that, where I'll be able to look at how to get through the new incursion they haven't even talked about yet, and how to get through the underground, and how to sort of, you know, which of the gear sets are going to be useful and which are not, and all that sort of stuff. That's all on the way. So please stick around. Thanks very much for watching, guys. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you in the Darkzone. Bye-bye.